President Uribe led his country from 2002 to 2010. He was re-elected in 2006 with 62% of the vote, the highest vote total ever received by a candidate in a Colombian presidential election. Under President Uribe, many aspects of Plan Colombia were implemented, and the security situation in the country improved substantially. It was an administration that faced challenges from the FARC, the opposition, the Congress, and their disputes with Colombia's neighbors, Venezuela and Ecuador. But few can deny that the Colombia of today is a different nation than 20 years ago. The Colombian economy has grown an average of 4.3% since 2007. Unemployment and poverty are at historic lows. We look forward to hearing President Uribe's comments about his time in office, the peace process, and the current situation. I would just like to say personally that, in my mind, President Uribe's security policy set the stage for the successful negotiations that are taking place today. And he is now the leader of the opposition in Colombia, the Centro Democrático, which obtained 7 million votes in the 2014 elections. And at a time when everyone talked about the pink tide in the hemisphere, I think President Uribe was presenting a democratic alternative, and a successful one. So without further ado, President Uribe, who will be interviewed tonight by Nick Logothetis of the Conferencia group.
So not Colombian.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor, President. It's an honor to be here today at a school that I once attended. So it's great to be back on campus. My name is Nick Logothetis, and I'm the co-founder and chairman of Conferencia, along with Matthew Swift here, who's the co-founder and CEO and chairman of Conferencia. We're really honored to be here today. What we're going to do is, I'm going to ask the President a few questions, but I really want to open the floor to you all. And when I do that, if I could request that we keep the questions short and to the point, don't forget to introduce yourself, and I'm sure the President will be delighted to answer your questions. But we want to get in as many as possible, and we only have till 7:30.
There will be people with microphones too.
There will be people with microphones.
So raise your hand if you have a question.
Raise your hand. Let me tell you 30 seconds about Conferencia. Conferencia is an organization that Matt and I founded 6 years ago. We promote public-private collaboration, and we do that in 3 ways. We convene people. We have an annual summit in New York every year during the UN General Assembly. We have 40 to 50 other events throughout the year around the world, this being one. We are an organization that provides research on public-private partnerships and how they've worked in the past and how they haven't. And we have a new impact sort of project that we're calling Campaign. So we take a program or an issue that is important, say labor trafficking, and we look at it from research angles, from convening angles, and from other angles to see how public and private can work together to better assist in dealing with that issue. We have a membership program, which I would urge you all to take a look at, concordia.net, and just once again, thank you for being here. I also want to say a special thank you to Barnett Coven, who's not here today, unfortunately, but he is the sort of, from the GW side, the originator of this, and also to Professor Lino and to Tim Stackhouse for his hard work and everything here. So, Mr. President, it's a pleasure to have you. I just have a very simple question to start off, which is, I'm not Colombian. I'm sure many people here are, as we saw. But I was wondering, I think the issue that most people are talking about, obviously, as it relates to Colombia, outside of Colombia now, is the peace process. And what we know is that you and President Santos have different opinions about it. And so I was hoping you could sort of take us through why you disagree with President Santos and what his negotiations are and on which points.
Thank you, Nicholas. I want to extend my gratitude to you, to the Concordia Group, to Ambassador Lino Gutierrez, to the University for hosting us, and I want to greet you, the students, university community. Ambassador Gutierrez spoke about conflict. I want to stand because I am very short. Not to say very small. And I disagree with the idea to denominate the Colombian problem conflict, because all the wars have not only the linguistic origins, they have the historic origins. Conflict in Latin America was used to name popular uprisings against dictators. This had not been the case of Colombia. FARC began with the remnant of partisan guerrillas after the National Front agreement. When FARC was established as it is today, it was some kind of replica of the Cuban Revolution in Colombia. Fidel Castro chose to replicate the Cuban Revolution in Bolivia and in Colombia. And FARC became his branch in Colombia, wanting to defeat the rule of law and to replace it for the proletariat dictatorship. Colombia didn't have a dictator. In the last century, Mexico has had 12 years of democratic interruption. Colombia only 4. 4, we have said that Colombia is the largest democracy in the region. FARC began as communist guerrillas, challenging the rule of law. And step by step, they became mostly mercenaries of narco-trafficking. Second, our policy was not only a policy on security. It was a combination of security, investment, promotion, and social cohesion. For instance, in social cohesion, during those years, in the middle of difficulties, the closeness of the Venezuelan markets to Colombian exports, the collapse, the implosion of the narco-trafficking financial pyramids in my country, and the international financial crisis created a lot of obstacles for our policies. However, we reduced poverty from 50% to 37%. The country made significant progress in the economy. In the year 2002, domestic private investment was $20 billion. In the year 2012, it was $75 billion. Foreign direct investment in the same period passed from $2 billion to $15 billion. Many Colombian corporations became multilatinas. In the year 2012, the multilatinas invested overseas more than $6 billion. And Plan Colombia, it was very helpful. In a letter that I sent to President Obama 2 weeks ago, I reiterate my gratitude to the United States, to those who conceived Plan Colombia. President Clinton, President Pastrana, Ambassador Luis Alberto Moreno, to President Bush, who made very important decisions that were very helpful to my administration and to Colombia. For instance, when he made the decision to allow the Pentagon to sell smart weapons to Colombia and to reestablish the program of air bridge denial. These decisions are helpful to us, that we consider this decision the tipping point for my country to dismantle terrorist groups. And President Obama, with whom I coincided during the last 19 months of my administration, was equally helpful. But today I disagree. Because in the year 2010, Colombia had reduced cocaine from 700 metric tons per year to 200. And 2 years ago, in the 2014, Colombia had 400 again. In the same proportion, illicit crops have advanced, have re-emerged. Therefore, I would say that not because of the United States, but because of the current policies in Colombia, we have lost a big amount of what we won, of what we gained during the years we applied effectively Plan Colombia. Why I disagree? I will only to mention, to enumerate the titles of disagreement, to give you the opportunity, to you, Nicholas, and to the community, the opportunity to go deeper in every point. We disagree because of impunity, because of converting narco-trafficking in political crime, subject to amnesty. We disagree because of political eligibility for members of FARC responsible for atrocities. We disagree because the government considers that the way for my country to get rid of illicit drugs is by signing the agreement and creating a partnership between the government and FARC to defeat illicit drugs. We disagree because FARC has been a great obstacle to the development of the countryside in Colombia. And now in these agreements, we have seen FARC converted into an interlocutor, into a valid interlocutor of the government to define the rural policies. We disagree because we cannot accept the combination of all forms of struggle. Last week in some cities of Colombia, in La Guajira, for instance, in the borderline with Venezuela, we saw people of FARC in uniform with guns under the excuse that they were doing pedagogy for the peace. And that what they done was politics with guns. The same we saw at the beginning of the 80s. It was totally damaging for the country. We disagree because the current government has not requested from FARC to give up their money to repair the victims. And FARC is the largest cocaine cartel in the world and the third wealthiest terrorist group in the world. These are the head news of our disagreements. I want to stop this question to give you all the opportunities to go deeper and deeper with your questions.
So would it be accurate to say that you don't oppose the peace process, but you oppose the conditions by which the current government has agreed, specifically you laid them out, but it is, in your opinion, important for Colombia to seek a peace with these groups, especially FARC, but under different circumstances?
I was very young. My father was killed. And after having left the mayorship of Medellin, President Betancourt appointed me as member, as the president of the Commission for Peace in my state, in Antioquia. And I did it. As governor, we created a Commission for Peace. During the presidency, I made many others. We created a law for peace, justice, and reparation. Because of the combination of this law and what we call the democratic security policy, we had a demobilization of 30,000, 35,000 paramilitaries, and the demobilization of 18,000 guerrillas. We opened ways for them to reinsert with generosity, but without impunity. We gave them shorter sentences to those responsible for atrocities. What we call ordinary guerrillas, ordinary paramilitaries, they did not go to jail. But the kingpin responsible for atrocities, they went to jail. Because I have always considered that impunity, look at this, is the midwife of new violence. At this moment, we see in Colombia the enlargement of the ELN, of the new criminal gangs, because they hope to have impunity as far as next to enjoy impunity. Impunity creates new violences. And we never change the rules of eligibility. We never thought the narco-trafficking in Colombia that has financed the assassination of the judges in the Supreme Court, the blowing up of planes, many massacres could be converted into criminal and into political crime and converted into a statute of amnesty. Therefore, we are for peace, but we consider that these conditions will create more violence and agreement could be unstable. What this government and FARC have agreed is equal to loss of full stop, to full stop loss. Remember in Argentina and Chile, at the end these laws were dropped. In El Salvador, the full stop drop had not been formally dropped, but the Justice Administration had disregarded it. Only some days ago, some former officials or the governments before the end of the confrontation were taken to jail. And they are accused of having killed nuns. They never thought that it was going to happen because they considered that it was enough with the full stop law. This impunity in Colombia violates the tradition of the good relationship between our two countries, breaks the international rules. The domestic constitution creates new violences and would be unstable. Therefore, these are some of our disagreements. Remember that when in Congress there was a discussion on the plebiscite, we said we cannot understand why the government wants to reduce the threshold from a turnout of 50% of the votes as it was established to 13. Look at this, you are very young. In the year 1957, Colombia had a plebiscite to approve the National Front. It was a country of 14 million people. And this plebiscite had 4,179,000 yes votes. But is the reason for us to lower the threshold in a country of 48 million people to approve by plebiscite the agreements with FARC with the vote of 4.4 million people. We have made all the constructive proposals to contribute, but the government only hears what FARC says.
So let's open it up for some questions. Again, if you could identify yourself and be relatively quick, we will get to as many as we can. And we have some microphones here. So this gentleman here.
Good evening. Alejandro Lara. I'm currently pursuing studies and a research fellow at Georgetown University. One thing that I always think about is that there are no administrations in the past, no former presidents that have taken actually care of building up infrastructure in Colombia. And the reason I'm saying is that I give you a quick example. The reason one of the questions that I was asked to be accepted in the program that I am right now at Georgetown, they asked me, well, we have a map of Colombia right in front of us. What region of Colombia will you take out and tell us why? So I say, well, I would take out Bogotá, Medellin, and Cali. You say, why? Well, because all the power is there. So you take it out and disseminate it throughout the country, so it helps out and build out leading institutions, basic free access to, better access to education to forgotten territories. So former, including you, with all the respect, sir, former presidents have done nothing for those forgotten territories. So what happened is that people that live there lose hope, and they push and they go and do drugs, join guerrilla, and so on. So for the future and for the students that are sitting right now here, I guarantee that none of them will go to Putumayo, Arauca, Caquetá. They don't even think about those cities because it's just not in their minds. They will go to Bogotá, Medellin, and Cali. So when Colombia is going to finally aggressively invest in infrastructure that you have, Universidad de los Andes, similar Universidad de los Andes in Caquetá, in Arauca, in Bichada, Chocó, so on, and that's the question.
Thank you. Let me have that time.
I speak as long as Latin American politicians. And this is a very difficult question to be answered in short. However, I will say to you this. First, you have to think what is the cause and what is the consequence. Is poverty, oblivion, are poverty and oblivion the causes of violence? The governments of the National Front produce a great impact to reduce poverty. However, with the increase of violence because of narco-trafficking, Colombia began to have problems that put its economy without the enough level of investment. In the year 2002, I found this vicious circle: violence, low level of security, high level of poverty. We began to convert this vicious circle into a virtue one: more security, reduction from 28,000 homicides per year to a little over 14,000. It was not enough, but the trend was good. The same in the same proportion in kidnapping. The economy was moving forward. I have already mentioned to you the numbers of investment, and we began to reduce unemployment and poverty. If you go to the airport of Bogotá, you see a new one. This concession was assigned during my government. The free trade agreements created all the opportunities for the Caribbean cities, for Barranquilla, Cartagena. Because of our security policy, Cartagena was again a stop for the Caribbean cruises and had made significant progress. If we go to the south of the country and you visit Putumayo, you see that our administration paid and improve the main roads in the south. But for instance, in the south of the country, in the borderline with Ecuador, we have the most promissory oil basins in the rivers Putumayo and Caguán. But in the last years, there has not been exploration because of the presence of guerrillas, narco trafficking, and the absence of security. When you speak about education, I have to remember you, my friend, that we passed from having 900,000 university students to 1.7 million. The coverage passed from 22 to 36. It is not enough, but the country was making progress. The National Service for Apprenticeship in Colombia is the best in Latin America. I dare to say that it is better than the similar service in Brazil. We expanded it eightfold during our administration. Therefore, the country has made great efforts, and the great obstacle has, in the last decades has been narco-terrorism. And I consider that the way the country is going on, of full impunity to fire, instead of solving this obstacle, will create much more obstacles. Look at the enlargement of the ELN, at the expansion of vaccines, new criminal gangs. Yesterday I received news that two of the main kingpins of FARC in the department of El Tolima now are committing crimes with the uniforms of the ELN. Colombia needs many answers. I understand, like I said, but we cannot deny what the country did in the past. And we cannot think that by granting impunity to FARC and political eligibility, the country will be better. I feel, besides that every terrorist group has ideological excuses. FARC began as Marxist-oriented doctrine. The vast majority of its members are involved in narco trafficking, and in the last years, its doctrine has been Chavez. Looking at the mirror of Venezuela, I want Colombia not to be the replica.
Next question. Over here. This lady. Okay.
Thank you. I'm Gretchen Small with Executive Intelligence Review, and es un placer saludarme, but I'm going to speak in English. And I'd like to just do a quick international context to ask you your view of what role Colombia could be as it was advertised in the coming decade of great international upheaval that we face today. One, there's a case filed, a suit was filed against the Crown Bank of the British Opium Wars, HSBC, in Brownsville, Texas, a few weeks ago, charging that the bank had violated U.S. terrorist laws because of its money laundering served as a material support for terrorism on the part of the drug cartels who had killed U.S. consular officials and immigration officials.
Where is money? Where?
Where?
Yes, where
In Mexico. The
killings
were occurred in
have the killings
Mexico.
taking place in Mexico.
In Mexico. In other words, they're charging that HSBC is material support and part of, because of its money laundering, of the terrorism of and they're charging the drug cartel with being terrorists, which I think is interesting. Now, HSBC is part of a transatlantic banking system, which at this point is about to break apart in a far worse crisis than 2007, 2008.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, if we could get to the
Yeah, I
question.
am. I just, because I wanted to get from there
Yeah.
to an alternative view of how the whole world could be put together, which some of the Asian giants are doing. And I would mention China, Russia, and India in particular with their new Silk Road. And this gets back to what the other fellow was asking in terms of infrastructure, right? What role do you see Colombia having in a world in which there are things like a South America transcontinental railroad, a connection of the railroads of Russia down through the United States, through Central America, through the Darien Gap into South America, that whole prospect versus what HSBC represents? Big question, but anyway.
Let me organize this mess in my mind. First, the ransoms, the briberies. Second, the railway. Third, the road, the unbuilt road. The ransoms. I disagree with any corporation paying briberies to bribe state officials, government officials, or to pay ransoms to criminals. But it is very important to combine two behaviors, two conducts, the corporation behavior and the state behavior. When you have a clear, a serious, a firm policy on security, it is much more difficult for corporations to pay briberies or to pay ransoms. Therefore, this is a combination. The more indulgent the countries are with criminals, the easier for corporations to be involved in crimes. Second, the railway. It is important to think in the long term, but it is important to solve the short-term problems. Even in between Colombia and Panama, even now, we do not have the road. Under the excuse that it will destroy the joint forest. This area is free for criminals and is without road for honest people. I believe that communications are much more better to keep the environment than the lack of communications. And let me speak about the jungle, because the rainforest is very important in the region between Panama and Colombia, as it is important in the south of Colombia. Let me share with you this. 52% of the Colombian territory is still in rainforest. The main enemy of rainforest is narcotrafficking. One of the main policies implemented by our administration was called forest ranger families. 100,000 rural families who were involved in growing illicit crops came to terms with my administration under the conditions that they keep the area clean of drugs, keep their eyes on recovery the rainforest, and they were paid by the government. I consider that it is necessary. You are going to have the road. You are going to have the railroad, the railway in these areas. You need to pay the native communities for them to keep the rainforest. I am very sad because the current government drop this project in Colombia that was very important to stop the destruction of the jungle, to replace it with illicit drugs, and that would be very important to stop illegal mining.
Alma?
If you allow me, Nicholas, we could pick 4 or 5 questions
Say it at the
at the same time.
Okay.
Hello, Alma Caballero.
I remember you at Georgetown.
Yes, from Georgetown, and now working here at Covington Burling, a law firm here in DC. Just taking advantage of your presence in Washington and given that tonight there's going to be a Republican debate, I'm intrigued to listen to your assessment of the current political election that's occurring in the United States and the rise of Donald Trump in the polls. Very interesting to listen to. Thank you.
I was going to wait to take 4 or 5 questions, but I have to answer this question for one reason. I cannot intervene in USA politics. One of the causes of the success.
Off the record.
One of the causes of the success of Plan Colombia was the support it had from a bipartisan coalition here in this country. My country needs to preserve a bipartisan coalition. And I, some years ago, was president. During my years as former president, now in the Senate again, I should contribute to keep the strength of this bipartisan coalition, and at this moment, the right thing to do is not to intervene in domestic politics here in this country.
This gentleman in the back here with the white shirt. So we'll take 3 or 4 questions, and I'll try and write them down.
First of all, thank you so much for coming to talk to us. It's been great. My question is more about the peace process. It was originally meant to last only 6 months, and now after more than 2 years, they come with, as you say, unacceptable terms and soft measures. Why do you think it took so long to come up? Do you think there was some sort of desperation and kind of rush in the end of the process to come up with the terms?
Okay.
I couldn't understand, and I want to take all the meaning of your question. Could you review your question and outline it to be short and concise?
En español, porque el proceso duró mucho más de lo que tenía que durar y con los términos inaceptables que, pues, o suaves contra las FARC.
Tampoco lo entiendo, pero I will think how to give you an answer.
In the back over here, this lady.
Thank you very much, President. I'm Yana Zhao from China. Barranquilla is the sister city of my hometown in China.
Please, I beg you to speak slower.
Well, China is growing very fast and they want to do everything very, very fast.
Your economy is very fast, but your rationale is very rational.
Well, my question is related to investment opportunity and trade relations with China. In your opinion, what do you think are the comparative advantages of Colombia as a trade partner to China, especially with regards to Venezuela, Ecuador, Argentina, and Brazil? And secondly, how likely is there to be a China-Colombia free trade agreement? Thank you.
China, competitive advantage for Colombia in the region, and the possibilities of this bilateral free trade agreement. A third one.
Okay, here, this gentleman.
My name is Gonzalo Aguilera. I'm Venezuelan, so there's a lot of. I never thought I would have the opportunity to actually ask you a question. I'm very thankful for the service you have done and the example you are for the region. And my question is, as a president, you have to make estimates of how much lives it's going to cost to end a war with the FARC instead of doing a peace process. And I know it's almost an impossible question to answer, but what is sort of the time frame or the expectations that you thought that a continued war with the FARC would end? So you thought of a 4-year horizon, a 5-year horizon?
You asked for the horizon of this war. I disagree with the word war, and I will explain why.
One more? Yeah, one more for this gentleman.
And one more I try to answer, and after if you have time, we pick other 4 or 5 questions.
Okay, we have 15 minutes left.
Buenas noches, presidente Uribe.
¿Dónde está el orador?
David Medellin, Antioquia. I'm a second-year master's student here at the Elliott School in International Security. My question is about security. In the last decade, the emergence of BACRI and sophisticated criminal organizations has spread at a very fast pace. In the next decade, which do you see as a bigger threat to Colombia? Is it the BACRI or is it the FARC, or their continued evolution?
BACRI, China. In my political moment, I disagree with the plebiscite, but our party will discuss if our reaction will be no vote or abstention. I disagree with the way this government is changing the constitution to introduce by a fast track the agreement with FARC. I disagree with the limitless law this government is requesting from Congress for the President to issue decrees to include in our laws subjects. Agree with FARC on education, agriculture, health, that are subjects that in our rule of law are considered of ordinary legislation. Maybe in the future, foreign the government will say that they need a constitutional assembly, not to review the terms of the negotiation, but to ratify them and to complement them. I disagree. If there were a constitutional assembly with popular elections as origins, to have the power to review the amendment, the agreements, we have said that we would accept. In the hypothetical case of the government, I wish at this moment, I won't disturb the table. I would say we should stay around the table. We should remain in talks. But we have to reorient this process. We cannot accept full impunity because of these, that reasons. We need to change this. Ordinary guerrillas will not go to jail, but the kingpins have to give to jail for short sentences. We cannot affect our rule of law, our freedoms. We cannot create risks to the private sector. And our urgency is not to fulfill one date. The government has said that 23rd of May or March. In my opinion, the date is not the most urgent subject. We could say, if you need to postpone to extend the talks, we agree. But please, Colombian people need to have trust in the process. You FARC should concentrate in a place. Under domestic and international vigilance, and you are going to fulfill the promise of stopping criminality. If FARC totally stop criminality, because the truth they announced before July the 20th that year has been a truth for the most visible crimes but they have taken advantage to increase the invisible crimes, to increase extortion, territorial control, narco-trafficking, the army. If they accepted a full cease of criminal activities, this will create trust within our people. It will be some ideas, but I wanted you to become a member of the central government. Not because I agree with the central government, but because you seem to be a very good listener. And the central government is not a good listener, with the exception of part. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.